Welcome to Cattle Connect, your insight into Alabama's beef cattle industry. I'm your host, Josie Jones, and this is Cattle Connect, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. Hello, cattlemen, and happy October Beef Month. We are so excited to be in our favorite month of the year in all things beef promotion, and we're going to be talking about that a lot here on the Cattle Connect podcast over the next few weeks. To kick everything off for our 60 years of savor of October Beef Month, I have a very special guest in studio to talk over the past 6 decades of beef promotion in Alabama. He'll be a familiar voice to a lot of you, and he's someone that we know and love around the office as a very familiar face. So please help me welcome Mr. Ed Whatley.
Thank you so much, Josie. It's great to be here and to be back around these surroundings and see how it's progressed over the years. Great.
We are very excited to have you back. For anyone listening who has not had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Ed, he was one of the originals when it comes to all things beef promotion in Alabama. So we're going to get to talk about the history of that across the state, but we're going to kick it all off as we normally do with a little introduction. So can you tell our listeners about yourself and how you got involved in beef promotion in the state of Alabama?
Yes, I was raised in Pike County, Brundage, Alabama, graduated Pike County High School and went to work with the meat departments in a local supermarket here. And for a couple of years, and one of our customers was Mr. Ham Wilson with the Alabama Cattlemen Association, and he would come by steaks and different things from time to time when they had a meeting. And he came in one day with Mr. Bubba Trotman, and they got some steaks for their meeting, and he said, "We have just purchased this van, and we painted it up with beef, and we have put a cow on top of it, a plastic cow. We equipped it with a PA system, and it has all kind of beef materials with it, and we're going to put beef on the map in Alabama, and we need somebody to drive it." And so within a couple of weeks there, I was driving the beef wagon.
That beef wagon has become a key icon in the Alabama beef industry history of something that everybody knows and loves, even though there have been different versions of the beef wagon over the years. Yes. And I know you can attest to that as you were the driver of the vast majority of them. But it's something that even looking back through the pictures and the books, it's definitely something that we were known for.
Yes, very much so. It's interesting in preparing. I think they bought the vehicle in February, March, and began to work on it, get it ready, and they hired a young guy out of Auburn to drive it that summer, and different things, functions, and that sort of thing. And then whenever I came aboard 1st of August, and they wanted to put beef on the map. And so the leadership of the Cattlemen Association and myself included sat down to map out a plan. And of course, that the first part of that was to reach the retail supermarket people. And of course, I was very familiar with that part of the industry. And so we decided to contact every meat director and all the Piggly Wigglies and the Jitney Jungles and IGAs and the Winn-Dixies, of course, was a huge, the beef people themselves were huge. But to contact those people and tell them they had an October Beef Month kit coming, and we wanted to organize promotions at their stores and get our local county groups active, the producers themselves active in doing during the month of October, because that was the time of year when most of the cattle, when a large part of the cattle were marketed in all the auction markets, and so it was designated October as Beef Month. And so my first couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, was visiting these meat department people with the beef wagon and with a sample of the kit and what it looked like. And they overwhelmingly accepted that and said, "Yes, we're ready to go." And the interesting thing, and then we came back to the office and began to, with volunteers, begin to build these kits in a big envelope with the posters and beef charts, recipes, and that sort of thing. And each store then would receive one. We would go to the headquarters and drop off 130, how many stores they had, and then they would distribute them. And then we got our local people involved. Josie, it was amazing as I look back. And that year, 65 was just a giant jump in promotion. And the great thing was we actually did the figures from these supermarkets, and they averaged 20 to 25% increase in beef sales during the month of October, and that first time we did it.
I'm sure that very quickly got their people on board
Exactly.
to see that sale increase. And that's something that we know on the beef industry side of things, of promotions are important and it really can help drive those sales. But for them to be able to see those numbers and make that direct correlation to your work was probably something that was very enjoyable to see.
It was. And looking back through my scrapbook the last couple of days and seeing pictures I had with the meat department, meat directors, and actually at the event, with the local producers, it was just the cowbells as they were called in, and the cattle producers themselves coming out to for a 4 or 5 hour promotion, and then also contacting the local newspapers and the media, and they had great coverage then throughout the state on what was happening. So we put beef on the map for October.
I love that our producers during that time and our leaders during that time, and you being one of those, sat down in that meeting and thought through what you needed for a stronger beef industry in the future.
Yes.
This wasn't just a decision that was made for 1964 and 1965. It was made for our producers today who are still selling this product and who still need that strong demand for beef. And so
That's
the
right.
decisions made then still affect our industry today, and I think that's so incredibly neat.
Thank you. It really was, and to look back and the success of that, as I said before, and both for our producers to actually do their own product, and the consumer reaction to those producers being there promoting their product, it was amazing.
And they were so hands-on. And that's something we still see with our producers today in October Beef Month and all the promotions that they do. But it's not anything new. We've had producers doing that for decades and generations even. So let's talk a little bit about that time in beef production and also in beef promotion and what the demand for beef looked like during that time when you were starting these different promotions and some of the products that were available and how that changed over your career.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what products you were dealing with in the grocery stores and how the options of beef have changed?
Sure. Part of the promotion programs then, and we thankfully for our beef industry, great research and all that they did with our checkoff funded dollars, was find out what the consumer wanted and how they wanted it. And so it was a matter of increasing that option because of the consumer. More of the ladies of the house were working full time and that sort of thing. So convenience immediately came to the top. And we were basically in the early 60s selling roast steak and stew, ground beef, and with some options, few options off of that. But then to promote the diversity of that sirloin tip roast. And we used to do demos with a sirloin tip roast and how you could get kebab meat out of it. You could get actual grilling steaks out of it. You could get stew beef out of it. And all of this, if you bought the whole thing and did it yourself, you could save money, obviously. But then the supermarkets begin to market that in different ways from that one roast that normally they would just sell a sirloin tip roast. Same thing with the chuck and the round, and being able to get out. And then it was convenient then for the consumer to come by and say, "Ooh, that won't take me just a few minutes to prepare tonight for my family." And so the knowledge of knowing that and the money spent for the producers' dollars, checkoff dollars spent to find that out is what helped us to direct our promotion programs to those ends, and it was great.
That's something the checkoff still works very strongly today to do, is to continue finding those new cuts. And that's something as consumers, when we walk into a grocery store today, there can be 100 products laid out in front of you where that's changed a lot. And a lot of that innovation has come as a result of the Beef Checkoff program.
Exactly. And also, as I was looking back last night, a big part of, and I have to say this, a big part of that was the marketing end of the producer in our auction markets and sale barns, which 90% of the cattle then were sold through these auction markets. Every one of those was like a supermarket. We had a display in each one of those auction markets where people were coming in and I could pick up their beef tags or a recipe or bumper stickers and if beef information, they could go back and promote their product, with themselves. The auction markets played such a huge role, and they also collected our checkoff dollars, which was the big thing. But they played a huge role in that early, especially that early, and still do, in the part of the promotion program. They were tremendous.
That's something we all realize as staff, and I know you had your time of realizing this as well, is we can't do all of it by ourselves.
That's right.
So we can provide the resources and offer some of the education, but our producers are a lot of times the ones who take these plans and put the feet on them and make them actually happen in our Alabama communities.
That's exactly right.
October is Beef Month in Alabama. Celebrate by firing up the grill, breaking out the cast iron, or turning on your slow cooker. No matter how you prepare it, beef is sure to bring high-quality protein and even higher quality taste. Happy Beef Month!
So let's talk a little bit as your career progressed from that very beginning October Beef Month and promoting in those supermarkets and some of those sorts of things into maybe some of the other aspects of your role and other parts that you got to do. You talked about going to these auction markets and educating your producers. What were some other things that kind of developed as time went on and you learned to do in your role here at the association?
Yes. Our next really project or point of reaching the consumer was through the food service industry, and that's our restaurants and our cafeterias and all that. And so we went to a lot of the individual, and the producer played a big role in this, in promotion of beef on their menus and how we could increase the amount of beef on a menu in just any restaurant. And that may be limited to what they were selling. We could educate them and get them to offer more. But we did that through the local suppliers, and not necessarily local, but the suppliers of the beef to the restaurants. And of course the steak chains come along and had a tremendous impact. But reaching those U.S. Foodservice and Cisco's and those people that supplied them and working programs with them and working with their sales reps, we found that their sales reps is going to sell mostly what they're familiar with. So if we can educate them about beef, then they could sell more. So we set up programs with Auburn University Meat Science to where we would take these particular people and have a meeting, a full-day meeting, and educate them on the possibilities of what they may be putting in or selling to a restaurant. And that really helps increase the demand there at the restaurant itself. And so that was probably the next largest thing, is working with and I was on the board of the Alabama Restaurant Association, mainly for that purpose, as I was the Alabama Grocers Association, was so that we would have a presence to be able to work with those people, and they were all tremendous. And that really, you could see it increase. And then there was a lot of table promotions and little stands, and going in the restaurant, you may see a beautiful picture of a steak grilled, and that came from the beef industry that they would display, and then having the contest with the best steak and all that came later, but all of that had to do with promoting that product, and of course the food service business increased tremendously there in the 80s, 90s, and in the early 2000s, and it still is as far as that goes. But working with those people was another huge step, and with that checkoff dollar to promote his product.
And it laid a strong foundation for a lot of the programs that we do today and a lot of the partnerships that we still have. You mentioned the Alabama Grocers Association. Yeah. We're still involved with them. We're involved with a lot of those food service companies because you laid that groundwork of establishing who we are in the state of Alabama and the resources that we have to offer and the type of work that we do. That's something we commonly run into when we work with these influencer groups. Yes. You know, we worked with the influencers before influencers were really a thing. But them knowing that we're here to provide resources and education, and there's not really a gimmick. It's just us offering this, and it's something that helps their industry in addition to ours, because when the beef industry is thriving, so is the food service industry, so is the restaurant industry. They all work together.
Yes.
So building those partnerships and building those relationships with those people to kind of offer this thing that helps all of us out is something that I know you worked really hard at, and we can still see the fruit of your labor from that time.
Yes. As you look back, Josie, also the media that I became more involved in, but the other staff at the Cattlemen Association being involved, October Beef Month would be a good example. The local county associations, cowbells, cattlemen, would go to their local newspaper, radio station, TV station, and do programs. And we had them designed for them to do that. Sometimes I could be there, sometimes Dr. Powell or Mr. Ham or whoever it may be, or the president or the officer or the local county would be there to do a program on beef. And that media is just really helped so much to become involved with us become involved with them. I'll tell you about this neat little thing we did in those early years with the beef wagon and traveling and going to somewhere. I would notify the local radio station, and I would say, I'm coming through bringing the beef wagon this morning. We're going to the ops stockyard, whatever. And so I'd like to do a little promotion. And you can announce it, and people will see the beef wagon. The first one that can call in and say, I saw the beef wagon, it's at the corner of so-and-so and so-and-so, then we'll give them a $20 beef certificate. And man, that gets caught on fast. And just a spur of a moment type thing.
Yeah.
And then everybody was calling in, everybody was looking, and then everybody was come see the beef wagon. They was riding, that sort of thing. But it was a neat media thing that we did. And the radio stations were so, and TV stations were so receptive for that sort of thing.
And that was such an ingenuitive idea. You were going there anyways. Yes. It wasn't an additional program. It was just a way to build off of something that you were already doing. It doesn't require extra funding. A $20 gift certificate. But outside of that, it was a way to build this excitement around something that you already had. That was so neat.
Yes. It just pops up all the time, things of that nature. And then to go back in the later years, even since I retired, and that person said, I was the DJ at so-and-so, you remember? And I said, oh, yeah, I can remember now. But it was neat.
I can only imagine the many relationships that you built over your time here.
Yes.
And how many lifelong friendships that were developed because of your role in the beef industry and your work promoting all of these producers. I know there's so many people here that when I talk about where I work, they say, oh, Mr. Ed Whatley, you're one of the first names that comes up because people know you and they loved you and they were used to you being in their communities. It wasn't just something where you were in Montgomery and called out. That was a time where you went and you did. And it's something that we still have to keep in mind. In a very digital age, there's nothing that can replace seeing somebody in person and going out into those communities.
It's interesting, Josie. Mr. Wilson and the leadership, when I first came to work, and they said, we want the beef wagon seen, so you take it to the grocery store. If you're going to church, if you're going to take it to church. But anywhere you go on a beef wagon.
Yeah.
Because that's our rolling billboard. That's what we want. So my family grew up in the beef wagon, and many times both of my boys go to the Christmas parades, and my oldest son would sit there with a microphone and sound like a cow, in the Christmas parades or some event that we would go to. But our family grew up as part of all these families, as far as a producer. So that was a great thing about working for the beef industry and forming these relationships, and it was super.
It's an amazing thing about our association, and I'll say this time and time again, is how involved the families are.
Yes.
It's so incredibly neat to work with a group of people that not only value you as an employee, but also value you as a friend and as, someone who gets involved with their family members. And it's very normal to go to a meeting and see parents with their kids there at those meetings, or a beef promotion event and have their 8-year-old and their 10-year-old there helping cook steaks and pass out samples to people. Yes. And that's something that I think is very treasured about agriculture, is it's a family thing. Yeah. We don't come to work and then go home and keep them completely separate. Our families are tied into what we do. And that's a unique industry to be in, but something that we truly love. And I'm sure your kids have many great memories of those beef promotion events and riding in the beef wagon.
And a lot of their friends, whether it was I would pull in for their ball game on the beef wagon or whatever, they as well as myself were known for the beef wagon, the beef industry, the Cattlemen Association, and it was a neat deal. It was really great.
We hope you're enjoying this week's podcast, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Get benefits like this and so many more to stay connected to Alabama's beef cattle industry today by visiting us online at bamabeef.org/join.
So let's talk a little bit, as we're talking through all of the different things and the changes over time, let's talk a little bit about that marketing component. So we've talked about the in-person marketing, and that was a large portion of what you did. But I know we had a discussion earlier where you mentioned even doing some billboards and some of those sorts of things as those were coming in. So can you talk a little bit about that component and how it changed over the years?
Yes. Of course, billboards being a really big thing. When I came to work in 65, and we had about 6 or 8 billboards, and working with the local mid-state advertising. I think they're probably still in business, but we're close on our billboards. And at one time we had nearly 50 billboards, and most of them were on major thoroughfares, but it was a producer's property. And and we put up the billboard, and how they changed from Eat More Beef to the iron component, pump iron. We had a big promotion there, and beef, it's your right to like, and all these different programs that we did. But having that billboard was a big part of all of that. And going into Tuscaloosa, we had a huge billboard. Going into Auburn on 65, we had a huge billboard. But then all of metropolitan areas, and we changed it out once a year or once every 6 months. And then beef, it's what's for dinner, came around and stuck, and that's been a great promotion, and off of the Eat More Beef thing, which we still do, obviously. But it's neat. The media and the advertising program is what we got involved. We, being the Cattlemen Association and the producer, but being involved with the media from the beginning, and being involved with the Alabama Press Association or whatever that was then, and we were a big part of that, and working those programs, and then our TV programs that personally promoting from October Beef Month to Beef for Father's Day to whatever it may be, that we would do programs on, and radio shows, live TV, and you name it, we've been there sometime, and promoting, and the local, there again, the local officers, the local Cattlemen Association, cattlewomen, being there to promote their product, and to see the change in the radio advertising, TV advertising, which we used to do quite a bit of, and we understand the Beef Day at Auburn, Beef Day at Alabama, those programs. We did Auburn about 3 years, and then our Alabama friends over there in West Alabama, we're going to do Alabama, and we did. We had 4 or 5 neat beef days. What Beef Day did, we ran the ads in the local football program, and during the football season, we were sponsors of the radio broadcast on both Alabama and Auburn, and then they gave us one day to promote beef at a home game. and those were tremendous, both Alabama and Auburn. To get, first of all, we got to feed the players like we still do sometimes now.
We do.
Promote it, and it's amazing, and get to meet those people, and get to sit down across this table from the head coach and do a radio broadcast was super. I was just privileged. At the same time, we're doing a great job, we think, and we do because of the results of beef promotion.
Absolutely. And that is neat that that's a program that we still do, and it's been in an adapted form as times change, and a lot of our programs have been adapted to fit our consumers. But at the base, we're still doing the same thing. Yes. We're offering beef education, we're promoting our product, and we're sharing the information from local producers to those that are eating their products, whether that's through a standard billboard like we used to do or something digital through some digital advertising to fit today's consumer. At the end of the day, all of those promotions come down to beef.
Yes.
And that has not changed. The heart of those promotions have not changed a bit.
Yes. Great.
I know there's so many great memories of all the time on the road and doing those different promotions. If you had a favorite story to share about your times, I know it's probably pretty hard to limit it to just one, but what would be one you would want to share with our listeners today?
One I share when I speak to county meetings sometimes now and entertain at them and speak is about the second year of our driving the beef wagon. I think I was about 20, and they wanted to. We had a national Cattlemen's meeting in Oklahoma City, and the leadership of the Cattlemen Association wanted to put the beef wagon in the trade show, because nobody had anything like it, and we did. But I took the officers of the Junior Cattlemen Association, and Mr. Tim Coe laughed, and he speaks about it quite a bit. But it took us a day and a half to get over there, spend the night, and a day and a half to get back from Oklahoma City. But going over there, we got some matches that first night at the motel, and some little penny matches, and I taught them how to play poker. Thought that was neat. And they said, oh, yeah. Well, coming back, they decided they wanted to play for a little change, and they won all my money. They just duped me. They knew how to play all along. But anyhow, we put the beef wagon in the trade show, and everybody came around. Of course, took a look at it. They'd never seen it, taking pictures, and it was wonderful. We had a bunch of cattlemen there around the beef wagon from all different states, and this one guy walks in, big, nice handlebar mustache, big hat, boots, you name it, dressed to the nines, and he looked around that beef wagon. He said, and that's pretty neat. And he said, yeah, you ain't got nothing like that in Texas. That's where he was from. He turned around to the Alabama Cattleman, and he says, how big is your ranch? And the Alabama Cattleman said, well, it's not that big. And he said, it starts down here, and he was telling about where it went. He said, about 650 acres, I guess, something like that. How big is your ranch? And that's all the old Alabama Cattleman, the Texas Cattleman wanting, see? And he reared his shoulders back, and he said, I put it like this. Get in my pickup truck in the morning when the sun comes up and drive due west. And when the sun goes down in the afternoon, you still on my place. And the Alabama Cattleman said, I had a truck like that one. And that's not exactly right, but it's pretty close.
That's the funny version of the story.
But that was a great experience to go to a national meeting and on the beef wagon and those junior cattlemen. We kept in close contact, as I said. Tim Coe wound up being our president and a great leader, he and his family, and those people from that part of the state was great. But that would top all of my stories, but there's lots of them. And the privileges we were talking earlier, during the rodeo, of course, I had the privilege of taking a rodeo star back then around to the local radio and TV stations to make their appearances and talk about the rodeo. And one of them, Ken Curtis, who was my favorite of all of them, I guess, and we were going down Norman Ridge Road, and people that older will remember the Sahara restaurant there. We stopped at the traffic light, and the rodeo was always during AEA, as we call it, all the holidays. Kids were out of school. A bunch of kids out crossing the street, and And Festus, Ken Curtis said, pull over here. And he pulled over. He got out and started signing autographs and that sort of thing. And I thought, wow. And that's the kind of person he was as far as that. But the privilege to take those people around and, get to know them, that was a extra benefit for me, And there again, the beef wagon, and everybody seeing it. And those thousand people came to the rodeo, and we always had the big beef displays, and that was the big part because it was part of the rodeo. It was the beef industry, so.
And it's still a part of it today.
It's
another one of those promotions.
Exactly.
It's still a part of it today.
So much a part of it today. Sure is.
We have covered a lot of the beef history, whether that's October Beef Month or your role here at the association that you filled for a very, very long time. For anyone that has not met Mr. Ed or heard about his story, he worked in beef promotion before Aaron Beasley, who's now our executive vice president. So it's definitely a spot that we've seen some very neat people come out of, and I'm very privileged to follow both of you in that role, along with a couple of others, and getting to promote this awesome product from our producers. Before we wrap up for today, is there anything else that you want to share about beef promotion, or while you have the opportunity to talk to our beef producers across the state?
Yes, I would like to say, first of all, the great privilege of working here was the membership out there and the reception I had wherever I went throughout all the counties and the county associations and many county meetings and that sort of thing. But that's where it starts, and the producer. And the early leadership when I first came to work at the Cattlemen Association is we want to work for that producer, and we want to increase that demand for that beef, for his product, and then we want him to know what we're doing and why we're spending that money for him. And so that has been our track record, over the years. But it was in such great people, willing, to give their time and all. And that's the great thing about the job. And speaking of Erin, when she first came to work here, and of course my job was she was going to kind of begin to fill in, especially with our retailers. And I had the privilege we had visited 2 or 3 days. We'd go visit each one of the meat department personnel at the supermarket headquarters. And it didn't take but a couple of visits, and all of a sudden they forgot who Ed Whatley was. That was this young lady coming along, well-educated and beautiful, and who was Ed Whatley? But it was funny but in many ways, but she's done a tremendous job. And as you all have, as I've seen the transition in here at the Cattlemen Association, is still working for that producer. Y'all still trying to do what, and been very successful. Not only on the Cattlemen Association side in representing the beef industry like that, but also in the promotion side, still hanging in there, still eat more beef and still promoting it. And it was a privilege for me, and I never got out of it, really. It's still part of it. I'm still active at Pike County Cattlemen and down in my home, and we're a big part of that. But and then I go to, as I said before, I had the honor to attend some county meetings and be their entertainer and speak a little bit about some of these stories I just told. But and it's been good.
Well, we appreciate that. We've had a lot of very, very amazing leaders that have laid the groundwork, as we've talked about a lot in this episode, and that gives us the ability here to do our job today because someone worked so hard to lay that across the state of Alabama. You started all of this with saying your job was to make beef known in Alabama and put us on the map, and all of that work was done very well, and I feel like really laid the groundwork for all the beef promotion we do today.
We thank you.
Well, one more thing I want to say before we wrap up. Thank you very much for coming on today. I enjoyed visiting with you and learning a little bit more about it. A quick note for anyone listening, if you ever have the opportunity to listen to Mr. Ed play, he has a lovely music group, and we have the opportunity and the privilege to hear from him at events like Bainbridge Block Party.
That's right.
And I highly encourage you to go check that out. Additionally, he also has a great steak seasoning that he is known for.
That's right.
So when you come to the museum, check that out in the gift shop and learn a little bit more about it. He has several things that have spun off of his time here in the beef industry, and he's still working hard to promote that product today.
Amen.
So we're thankful for all you do and all of your hard work, whether that's your years at the association or all you do today to support us as a staff and continue to promote this great product that our producers grow.
Thank you.
Thanks so much
My
for coming on
pleasure.
today. All right, cattlemen, y'all know what that sound means. It's time for your Cattle Connect Fast Facts. We're going to kick it off with a little bit of beef checkoff education. We talked a lot in this podcast episode about the research and promotion arm of the Beef Checkoff program. One thing a lot of producers don't know is that Beef Checkoff funding can only be used for specific project areas. Some examples of this would be the promotion, the research, and education. None of this funding is allowed to be used for lobbying or any governmental policy. A great example of how this funding has been used is to develop additional beef products, as we mentioned in this episode. One easy-to-see example are those ready-made products that we see when we walk in the grocery store. It's all about making beef a more convenient and more appropriate option for our consumers so that hopefully they consume it more often, therefore establishing a stronger beef industry for tomorrow. This is all on how the checkoff program works, and if you ever have any questions about how this operates, contact us here. We'd love to walk you through it. Tying into the October Beef Month promotions that we've discussed, again, all through this episode, I would like to remind you that we just released our 60 Savory Stops campaign. For anyone that has previously learned about any of our Bama's Best Beef contests, this is a spinoff of those previous programs to celebrate 60 years. You can check out more information and find a list of restaurants to visit at bamabeef.org/60. We'll cover more information on that soon on the podcast. And finally, to wrap things up, for any of our producers listening to this podcast today who are involved in their county chapters, just a reminder that Cattlemen of Beef Month contest is running. This is where all of our producers have the opportunity to participate, gain beef promotion points for their county, and hopefully come out as the winning county and the Cattlemen of October Beef Month. The way you can participate is to promote beef in your county, send pictures to me. Reminder, I'm Josie at bamabeef.org. That's my email. And send me some information about the different promotions that you're doing in your county. I'll keep a tally all month, and on October 31st, we will calculate those up and determine our winning county and our Cattlemen of October Beef Month. We'll have some great prizes for you at convention in February in Birmingham. That's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us for this first October Beef Month podcast. We hope to see you back next week and every week for Cattle Connect. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Cattle Connect, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when our next episode goes live. And until next time, remember, beef, it's what's for dinner.